YouTube. Come on, YouTube. What's wrong with you? I think YouTube might actually be working though, Jason. I think we might be off to the races. Alrighty. Ooh, I can see us on YouTube. I'm a real professional. Look at this. I think we've got someone watching. We're doing everything right. Hello, everyone. We are almost there. I'm going to go live on this button. We are seeing streams go live. We are up on Instagram, Jason.
Awesome.
And we are up on Facebook. The fun. Ladies and gentlemen, it is lovely to see you all. We are just turning everything on so that everyone can stream this live all over the internet. This is fun. This is the first time I've done this, Jason. How are you? Jason from Uptrend Advisory. It is lovely to see you, my friend. Thank you for jumping on to this express webinar, the end of your tax checklist webinar. You've worked very hard to put together a lovely list for expats all over the world, from all over the world in the US, to give them a bit of an idea. Hello, my friend.
Hi, Josh. Great to do this with you. And likewise, I think it's our first time having a drink together. So cheers.
I think it is. Cheers from across the US.
Yep, coast to coast.
Coast to coast. We're doing well. I'm still just making sure that we're going live on all the right things, but I think we're good. I think we're just going to kick it off because I'm seeing all the right things. It says all the right things. So Jason from Uptrend Advisory, you have very kindly worked with us to put together a big list of information for people who are living in the US. Obviously, we're way ahead of tax time. So I understand there's going to be some people saying like, geez, you guys are getting way ahead of yourselves. Tax time's not for a few months yet. But do you want to quickly, just broadly, have a quick intro about why we've put this tax checklist together? Like, what's the benefit of having a bit of a look at this right now, well in advance at the end of December?
Yeah, absolutely. So with taxes, it can take a lot of time to get everything you have ready. And then it can also just take a lot of time to realize, oh, I've got all of these things that I need. So by being proactive and having your laundry list of what you need, you're able to start kind of chipping away at that tree now. And then that will let you file nice and early next year, as opposed to having to kind of stress out closer to the deadline.
Got it. So it's basically, like, the more you can do in advance, the better. It makes life a little bit easier. Takes the stress away, basically. It just makes, you worried a little bit less. So we head into the holidays, we get some exciting parties to go to, we get to enjoy our cocktails, and we don't have to worry about the IRS tapping on our shoulder. So we're going to burn through this because we don't want to keep people long. We know that this is, the silly season. So we're going to start now. For those of you who can't see it, I've got the checklist here, but you can go to this address, americajosh.com/check tax. If you go to that, you can download this list. So if you can't read it here, that's completely fine, but you can download your own version here. So you just fill in the form, it'll send you a link to the PDF. But Jason, let's start up top left. Decide whether to self-file or use a professional. Quick recap on whether people, is it okay for people to try and file themselves? What's sort of the check there?
Yeah, good place to start, Josh. So look, if your situation's quite simple and you're aware of all of your reporting obligations, then absolutely you can self-file. But if things here are starting to sound a bit confusing or are new to you, it's probably best to use a professional just to avoid unwanted surprises. Okay,
awesome. So first check, decide whether to self-file, because obviously that's going to make a big difference to what you do next. So then you've got W-2s from all employers, 1099s from jobs, freelance, investments, banks, governments.
Yeah. So Josh, if you're employed in the US, then you will get what's called a W-2. You should receive it by January 31st of the following year for anyone that you worked for as an employee. That is, for most people, the crucial backbone piece that goes into your tax return. Now, 1099s are things you get from other sources outside of employment. So if you've got shares or dividends or bank interest, you're going to get 1099s from your bank. If you were on, disability leave or unemployment, you'll get that from the government. So just think, if you've got any kind of income sources outside of your job, you're probably going to be needing a 1099 from that.
Okay, so not everyone will have many. Some might not have any. Like there's a chance, but W-2s, if you've got a job, if you're on a visa here, it is very it'd be very unlikely that you wouldn't have a W-2. W-2 is the real essential one that you'll get, and you get it in the
Yeah.
mail. Like it just comes as a letter from your employer.
So some companies will send it out physically, others will let you download it from, your HR payroll platform.
Okay, cool. Maximizing. So 401ks, IRAs, and Roth. A
Yeah.
lot of people have heard of 401ks, but what are we doing there?
Yeah, so depending on your strategy and everything like that, it would be a good time to look at contributing to 401k. It lets you reduce your tax for that year and grow, a retirement vehicle for your future. The limit's 22,500 this year. So if you want to contribute to that, you can do that. IRA is a separately held retirement account. You can contribute 6,500 to that. And a Roth is a post-tax dollar retirement vehicle that you can also contribute 6,500 to.
Okay, awesome. So there's some money that you can put away for a later day. And yeah, again, as you said, it depends on your strategy. This is definitely this webinar, just like all of the advice and the checklist itself, is not individual advice. It's not tax advice. It's not investment advice. It's not financial advice. It's not personal. If you want personal advice, if you want tax advice, you need to have an accountant. You need to speak to someone individually. So this is general advice. Some of the things that you can think about and the questions you can raise with someone like Jason at Uptrend Advisory when you do have those questions later on. All right, next one down, we're going to keep working through. Kept receipts of quarterly tax payments, and yeah, so people might have already contributed, is that right?
Yeah, so if you know that you're going to owe a tax bill due to, capital gains or bonuses or share stock vesting at work and payroll isn't withholding enough, you probably want to be paying as you go each quarter and just keep those receipts for tax time because that inflows into your tax return.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Reviewing the W4. Here's another W2, W4, withholding for future year or set up quarterly scheduling.
Yeah, I know the form names are very confusing. The W4
They make them super
form,
fun over here.
Yeah, the W4 form is what you give your employer to reflect what needs to be withheld from each pay. So if there's a situation where you have a surprise bill, maybe it's time to update your W4 so that it doesn't happen next year.
Got it. Okay, so it's planning for again, it's planning in advance of what's going to come next time. Alrighty, prepare a spreadsheet showing highest value of non-US assets and income generated from them. So this is a crucial one. A lot of these other ones would have been relevant for someone that's from the US, but this one's special for people from outside the US.
Yeah, Josh, this one is probably the biggest one for an expat living in the US because the IRS does have strict foreign asset and structure and income reporting requirements. So that's why it's also good to be proactive now. So you've got all the time to start digging up what did I have in this bank account? What interest did I have? What was my share portfolio this year? All of that kind of stuff. You want to start collating it so that way you're ready to go next year. You don't have to start digging through statements then.
Absolutely love it. And on a similar note, receipts for electric car credits, donation receipts if itemizing, and out-of-pocket medical expense if itemizing. So this is really about thinking back over the last 12 months and what are the things that you've accrued that you need to start cataloging.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think I need to go in more detail than you have because it's pretty
Yeah.
straightforward. If you've got it, keep it. Yeah.
Yep. No, fantastic. And then finalize the most recent non-US tax return. So making sure that if you've, for example, from Australia, you want to make sure you've got that tax return done from the 2022, 23 year. Is that right?
Yeah, 22, 23, and the primary purpose of that is to be able to claim credits that you paid to Australia in that example against what the IRS wants to calculate.
Perfect. We all know that there's some credit back and forth. So yeah, you want to make sure you take advantage of that so you're not paying all sorts of tax. All right, so then we're going to go to those with the family up the top right. So did your family grow, shrink? Did you get married or divorced? Did you have dependent expenses? Did you contribute to a 529? Student loan, tuition? So this is all about if you've got kids in the US, if you've changed your circumstances.
Yeah, so this one's a big one because if you have had a new child and they get a social security number or an ITIN, there are credits for that. So definitely claim those if you can. If you got married, then you're looking at the situation whether it's worthwhile filing jointly with your spouse or separately. And likewise, if you're getting divorced, does it make sense to still file jointly or start splitting everything up? If you've got dependent care expenses like daycare and you've got a child with a social security number or ITIN, then you can claim some of those costs. And depending what state you're in, 529s, which is a college education fund, you can possibly get a state deduction for contributing to your kids' fund. And then lastly, if you've got student loan tuition, then that's also a possible deduction as well. So going back to the whole cataloging what has happened, this is the time for it.
No, I love it. And I think this is where I personally, so I've just had a baby and obviously my situation changed a bit and the family's grown. So this is the one where I start to realize there are all these things that you need to think about that aren't just, I earn some money. I want to make sure that I give you my W-2. There are things that can actually benefit you if you think about them in advance, if you start to collect these receipts, if you start to, take care of what's available to you, you can potentially capitalize on and save some money on tax, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
No, fantastic. I've got in the background, Danny is having a good cry. I don't know if you can hear that. It's just the perfect little background to, those with family. All right, investments. So local standard investments. So this is where, again, people, there's going to be the normal things or the things that are expected for people in the US. And then there's going to be the things that expats especially have to really consider because there's a unique element to investing locally and overseas. Is that right?
Yeah. So for everything that's on the US side, you are going to get those 1099s that kind of report on the annualized basis everything nicely for you. So it's just a matter of getting those things. There are investing apps that are out there that you can also get that data from and online tools that are also there. So if you have one of those things like Acorns, Robinhood, all of that kind of stuff, you can invest from your phone. You can also get those reports from those platforms too. When it comes to the foreign investments, foreign in this case being non-US, that's where, again, you're going to have to kind of roll up your elbows, roll up your sleeves and
roll up your elbows
and start getting all of that data. But
yeah.
at this time of year, especially as an expat, it also gives you an opportunity to look at kind of cleaning up what you've got overseas to help make future years easier to deal with. So let's say, you've got trusts in Australia or companies or other structures and, you're not really using them anymore. Maybe it's time to wind them up before the year ends, that this is your final year of dealing with them. Or if you invested in something nasty called a passive foreign investment company, maybe sell out of those funds so you don't deal with that in the future. So, it's a good time to kind of clean house if you want to clean house and simplify your, US tax filing obligations.
No, I love it. And that's exactly why we're having this conversation at the end of 2023 and not at the beginning of 2024. Because obviously if your investments, if your involvements in things flow into January 1, 2024, that means in your filing, and correct me if I'm wrong, but in 2025 is going to have to include the things that you didn't end. So it's just kind of this perpetual cycle if you don't do it.
Yeah. So if you want to kind of close that event and not hold it at all in the 2024 calendar year, now's the time to do it.
Yeah, love it. And it's important to note also, I just was thinking about the investments and you were talking about the apps and the Robinhoods and the Acorns and stuff. It is important to note that this is obviously tax time is coming for the US and it's expected by everyone. So those apps will actually trigger and all of your investments in the US and your bank will start to send you letters, or in the app, it'll say ready to download, click here to download your 1099 or click here to download your whatever. It's important to check I know a lot of people don't check their mail all that often because we get all this, you rarely check it. You check your email way more often, but it's time to actually open your mailbox, make sure you've got access to it because you will get these letters. Do check the apps. They will have automatic buttons that allow you to download. So yeah, check your mail. That's, I feel like my grandma, it keeps telling me. All right. So homeowner specifics, the 1098 form and property tax bills and solar panel installation or clean energy. What do we got here?
Yeah, so when you're a homeowner, unlike, other countries like Australia, you can get some tax deductions. So for your mortgage, you will get a tax form called a 1098 that says this is the interest you paid in a year based on this loan.
Okay.
And you can claim some of that interest as a tax deduction. And then similar with property tax, the tax that you paid can also claim as a deduction. This is all under what's called itemizing instead of taking that standard deduction. So solar panel installations or clean energy, that's a big part of, the tax code where if you're doing these green things, you are going to get some rebates for them. So if that's something you've done, catalog it, and then claim it in the tax return.
I love it. And this is, I know I'm just basically saying like, go talk to Jason, but like the reason that we generally say, especially for expats, especially in your first year, and I mean, in general, just always, but especially for expats in their first year, there's all these things that you might not be familiar with. And some of them are going to be, if you don't file, you're in trouble. And some of them are, if you don't file, you're missing out on opportunities. So like, speak to someone, because there's lots of things that I think a lot of the time as someone who like was filing perfectly fine in Australia, I got here and had no idea half these things existed, and like you miss out on opportunities. So Jason helps me out, which is always lovely, and yells at me for taking too long to fill in my forms. But I try, Jason. All right, the last one is business checks, because I know, and we included this, I know not everyone is going to have a business, and a lot of visa holders and things are going to say like, this isn't for me. But what have we got in the business side of things?
Yeah, so if you are a business owner, now's the time to think about, do I have expenses coming in the new year that I want to spend now, so that way I can lower my profitability for this tax year, as opposed to just dealing with it next year. So if you have a high income year and you think future years are going to be lower, then naturally you want to lower the high income year while you can. Reconciling your accounts, this kind of comes back to being prepared. When it comes tax time, a lot of accounts are not reconciled. When I say accounts, for simple terms, the bookkeeping isn't done. So things aren't matching. And so that kind of creates a stressful situation. So if you can be on top of that, that's great. Quarterly tax payments, similar to what I talked about earlier, but if your business has to pay taxes, like if it's a C Corp, then as long as you've been making those quarterly tax payments, keep the receipts until tax time to ensure that you've been paying as you go. And the last one is a new one.
This is a highlight of the webinar.
highlight. It's what the FinCEN, the arm of the government that deals with financial crimes and enforcements. If you've been dealing with FBARs, you should already be familiar with that entity, but it's a new report for business owners that essentially identify who the owner of the business is. So it's new, it's coming out next year. It's just informational, there's no tax, but you have to do it. Otherwise, there's penalties for not complying.
Okay, love it. Good to know. And something else that you wouldn't know. So I'm glad everyone tuned in. If you've got a business, make sure you have a look into that one. So Jason, that is the end of our list. We do have one last category, which is extras, which basically Jason and I sit down and do a more in-depth analysis of, what's in this list and general tax questions. We get sent, I mean, must get dozens, if not hundreds of thousands of questions. I certainly get dozens and hundreds of questions every year from people saying like, do I have to do this? What's FBAR? How, like, is this FBAR filed with your tax? If I tell them about the account, do I have to invest it? Like, so many questions that a lot of the time we try and every year we sit down at the beginning of Feb and we talk through a lot of these. Again, it's not individual advice, but it gives people something to go to their accountants and talk to them about and make sure they're asking the right questions. So you can go to this address, americajosh.com/check tax. You can download this checklist, which will give you what to do for the end of this year. In that, and on that URL, there is a link to join our longer webinar. It goes for a full hour. You can submit your own questions. You can connect with Jason in advance. So you can actually go to this address and connect with Jason right now. But yeah, the idea is that we're trying to help as many people as we can, make sure that they know all of the things that will help them and head off some of the issues that a lot of the people, I mean, Jason, you deal with hundreds of tax years and hundreds of people filing their taxes. So you know the traps that expats fall into, and we try and head some of those off. We did it. Cheers.
We did it, Josh.
One more.
Did it. Cheers.
Cheers. No, thank you. So Jason from Uptrend Advisory, worth checking out uptrendadvisory.com as well. We've got links at this address, but go to uptrendadvisory.com because you'll also find a huge amount of FAQs tailored to individual visa types. You've got information on E3s, for example, which I know a lot of viewers would have. So it's a great opportunity to connect, to read through some of the answers and the Q&As there. So mate, thank you very much. I'm sure we'll hear lots of questions and lots of feedback, but thanks everyone for watching, and